A stranded woman knocked at midnight, but the millionaire who answered revealed a dark secret. The clock struck midnight, echoing ominously through the sprawling mansion perched on the edge of a cliff. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the figure of a woman drenched and trembling at the massive front door. She was lost, panic etched across her face, her heart racing like a trapped bird flapping against its cage. Who was she? What brought her to this desolate place? She raised her fist, ready to knock, but then, through the glistening streaks of rain, the door swung open. A tall man, dressed in a black silk robe, framed in dim light, gazed at her. His eyes were piercing, deep-set, almost predatory against the soft glow of the chandelier. "What happened to you?" His voice was smooth but chilling, sending shivers down her spine. "I need help," she begged, her voice barely above a whisper, hitching in her throat. And as she stepped inside, the sharp scent of sandalwood wrapped around them like an old, forgotten secret. The door clicked shut behind her, and she felt the shadows closing in. Unusual shadows danced along the walls, transforming the fancy decor into eerie shapes. Whispers seemed to fill the air, and she shivered as if unseen eyes were watching her every move. "Did you come from the storm?" he asked, his gaze unyielding. "Yes. But it's not just that. There was something out there, something dark." Her words hung heavily, begging for attention. Suddenly, she caught a glimmer of something behind him, a framed photo on the wall. The couple in the picture smiled brightly, but something was off. The wife had the same frightened expression she now wore. Just then, the wind shrieked outside. It was as if the storm understood her fear. The man stepped closer, his face unreadable. "You shouldn't be here tonight, not with what's going on." As the leads tightened and her heart raced, she couldn't shake the feeling that this home held terrible secrets. Shadows melded, darkness pooled in corners, whispering warnings. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Do you hear that?" she said, her voice thick with dread. The wild wind howled louder, and the lights flickered. In the corner of the room, a door she hadn't noticed before creaked open, revealing a staircase spiraling into darkness. "What's down there?" she asked, her heart racing, its rhythm thundering in her ears. He turned away, casting a shadow that almost seemed to stretch, revealing a flicker of something sinister in his smile. "Nothing you want to see." With every word, the air around them thickened, full of secrets. She took a step forward, compelled by an unseen force, asking herself, could she really walk into the unknown? What would it reveal? What lay just beyond that threshold? Her heart ached, caught between fear and a desperate need to know. The question hung heavy in the air, waiting for an answer that felt more dangerous than the storm outside. As she stood there, heart pounding, a chill ran through her. The soft whispers surrounding her seemed to breathe life into her fear, urging her to flee, yet the lure of the staircase was magnetic. Something compelled her to step closer, to peer into the darkness below. "Don't!" His voice cut through the tension, sharp as glass. She froze, meeting his intense gaze. The shadows deepened around him as if he drew the darkness closer, and her breath caught. "Why?" she managed, her voice trembling. "What's down there?" "Things that should remain hidden. If you come down, you may never return." He took a step back, vanishing momentarily into the gloom. The house groaned under the pressure of the storm, and she could feel its weight pressing against her. Doubt clawed at her, but her curiosity danced just out of reach. The moonlight flickered through a nearby window, casting eerie patterns along the floor. She could almost see the shapes, distorted visions that twisted and turned like ghosts trying to escape. "Please," she breathed, desperation mixing with resolve. "I just want to know the truth." At that moment, a crash of thunder shook the foundations, causing her to jump. She turned back to the man, whose expression remained unreadable. "Sometimes, the truth is more terrifying than the dark," he said softly, but his voice was thick with urgency. With each heartbeat, she felt the weight of his words. She thought of the photograph of the woman with the frightened eyes. Did she seek the truth, too? A cold wave of dread washed over her. What if she had walked into a trap? Then I want to ask again. She turned to leave, pulling the door open against the howling wind, but something deep in her chest stirred a longing to stay, to confront whatever lay beneath the surface. "Wait!" His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. His fingers were surprisingly warm against her icy skin, yet his touch sent a shudder through her heart. "You don't know what you're dealing with. This house, it has a history. A dark one." She pulled away, feeling the tension stretch taut between them. "Then help me understand. Why did you bring me in here if you wanted me to leave?" "I brought you in because I feared for you. There are things here, things I cannot explain." As the words hung in the charged air, she moved back toward the staircase. "Then show me," she demanded, her voice gaining strength. "Show me everything." For an agonizing moment, he hesitated. She could see the battle raging behind his eyes, that predatory glint fading into something caught between regret and fear. Finally, he nodded, his frame taking on an almost haunted look. "You asked for it, follow me." The darkness yawned ahead, a gaping maw filled with the unknown. As she stepped cautiously onto the first creaky stair, she felt the sagging weight of generations upon her. The air thickened, wrapping around her like a shroud. Each step echoed, bouncing off the cold stone walls, urging her deeper into the abyss. "What don't you want me to see?" she murmured, the words slipping from her lips like a secret. "Things that even I hide from myself," he replied, his voice a ghostly whisper now. And as they descended into the darkness, a sharp cracking sound resonated from above, causes both of them to freeze. "Did you hear that?" she gasped, a chill creeping into her bones. He turned his head sharply, and in that instant, the ground beneath them trembled, as if the house itself had awakened from a slumber, angry and waiting. She could feel something lurking just out of reach, a presence pulling at her, hungry for the light. What lay at the bottom of the staircase? Would they uncover a dark past buried within the walls? As they plunged deeper into the yawning void, the question loomed larger: could they escape the shadows, or would they become lost within them forever? The air thickened further as they continued down, every step amplifying the eerie ambience around them. Shadows stretched like fingers against the walls, morphing with every flicker of light from a cracked bulb dangling precariously above. The man moved cautiously, the tension wrapped around him like an invisible cloak, but she felt a tremor of excitement coursing through her, a disturbing thrill. "Where are you taking me?" she whispered, aware of each syllable as it slipped into the dark. He didn't reply. His silence grew deafening, pulling her closer to panic. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind rushed up from the depths below, spiraling around her ankles, a chilling caress that sent shivers through her. "We should turn back," she said, uncertainty creeping in. Her voice quivered as the shadows danced hungrily at the edges of her vision. His gaze remained fixed ahead, unwavering. "It's too late for that now. Trust me." But his words felt hollow, echoing with doubts. As they reached the landing, a dim light flickered, revealing an ancient door seemingly untouched by time. Grooves tangled into the wood, whispers of untold stories etched into its surface. She felt drawn to it, almost as if it was breathing, waiting for her touch. But her instinct screamed at her to resist. "What is behind that door?" she asked, her heart racing again. His eyes softened, conflicted. "You'll find answers, but not the kind you want." Against her better judgment, she reached for the handle. The cold metal burned against her palm, sending a ripple of fear skittering down her spine. She glanced back at him. "Wait. This is insane. It's the only way." His voice, thick with urgency, held a weight she couldn't understand. Courage surged within her, compelling her fingers to twist the handle. With a creak of protest, the door opened, revealing a cavernous room steeped in darkness, littered with artifacts that whispered memories, a forgotten world just waiting to be uncovered. A shiver coursed through her as she took a step inside. The flickering bulb behind her reflected a glint of something metallic on the floor. Her breath caught as she bent down, revealing an old, tarnished locket. She opened it, gasping at the image inside a woman, her eyes mirroring her own. "Oh my God! Who is she?" His expression twisted into something darker. "You don't want to know," he said, stepping back as if the very mention of the woman made him uneasy. Heart pounding, she waved the locket in front of him. "This is my face. How is this possible? Stop!" he shouted, desperation breaking through his calm facade. "The truth isn't what you think it is." But the words landed on deaf ears. The allure of hidden truths consumed her, and she pushed further into the room, crossing a threshold into shadowy memories. The air thickened with the scent of decay. She froze. Something shifted in the darkness, a movement just within the corner of her eye. What was that? She gasped, backing away as she squinted into the deep shadows. "It's not just a house," he breathed, grounding her in a reality she didn't want to face. "It lives and feeds on regret." With that, a savage roar echoed from the depths of the room, a sound unlike anything she had ever heard. The ground trembled beneath them as an ominous figure emerged from the dark, shapes of pain intertwined with anguish looming ever closer. Panic surged, her heart thudded painfully against her ribcage. "What do we do?" "Run!" he shouted, as the darkness shrieked in response, closing in around them, jaws poised to devour. The chase was on. As they bolted back toward the staircase, she felt the cold breath of the past on her neck, urging her to remember. But would she find salvation, or would the house claim her as its own? The question burned in her mind as they raced against the consuming darkness, echoing louder with each frantic heartbeat. The pounding of her heart drowned out the ominous growl behind them, but adrenaline propelled her feet. They charged up the stairs, the shadows lunging back, retreating only to gather strength for another strike. She could feel the man's presence beside her, a shadowy guardian battling his own fears. "Don't look back!" he hollered, voice strained with urgency. Yet all she wanted was to glance behind, to understand what hunted them, to see the dark entity itch closer, hungry for despair. Why is this happening? She barely recognized her own voice. It was choked and raw, like dry leaves caked in mud. "It's the house," he shouted, bounding up the remaining steps. "It knows you. It knows your pain." That hit her like a cold slap. Pain? What pain? 1,000 questions surged in her mind, but terror curdled them into nothing. Her life had been filled with struggles, but nothing could compare to the dread that curled around her now. The grip of the locket, nestled in her pocket, tugged at her thoughts again. Who was the woman? Did she too run from something veiled in shadows? Another roar echoed, ripping her attention back to the chase. A shudder ripped through her, and she pushed harder, her lungs burning. Finally, they reached the top of the staircase, their sanctuary limited to the splintered hallway before them. Where now? She gasped, collapsing against the wall. The flickering lights above cast stuttering shadows, but there was no time to study them. The air felt electric, tense, every bulb a temporary balm against the encroaching darkness. His breath shaky, he pointed to a door slightly ajar. "In there! Quickly!" She dashed toward it, her hands trembling as she gripped the knob. The door opened to a small room heavy with the scent of damp wood and memories. She surged inside, dragging him after her, and slammed the door shut. The silence enveloped them, thick and oppressive. She leaned against the door, pressing her ear against the wood, all too aware of the heartbeat that echoed in her ears. "What do we do?" she asked, her words barely a whisper. "How do we stop it?" His face twisted in anguish. "We have to face it. We need to confront the truth." His eyes bore into hers, filled with a mix of dread and determination. The house preys on lies and regret. It needs to feed on the darkest parts of ourselves. Terror crawled back beneath her skin, feeding on his words. "But I don't even know what that means. What exactly does that look like?" "I can't explain it yet," he hesitated, finger twitching to unlock a hidden memory. "But you held the past in your hand." Before she could respond, the door rattled violently, wood splintering as something fierce slammed against it. Behind the door, the shadows clawed, a whispering madness clawing at them, desperate to break through. "Keep it shut!" she cried, using her entire weight against the door just as it bucked again, the menace writhing just inches away. "Think!" he shouted, pinned against the far wall, face stark with fear. "Remember the locket. What it showed you. What it wants from you." Then it struck her, the woman in the locket, the mirrored eyes. She was more than just a distant connection, she was the key. The silent scream within her twisted into realization her own sorrow, her own tragedy. With a newfound resolve, she took a deep breath. "I need to know who she was. I have to understand what the house wants and why." His eyes widened. "You can't, but she was already moving again, against all instincts, as if pulled by the unseen cords of fate. The door shuddered again and again, the shadows howling, but she stepped back toward the lighted end of the room, where a chest sat cloaked in dust and despair. "Open it!" She heard the echo of his warning, but a strange compulsion gripped her. As she knelt before the chest, darkness broke against the door in a flurry of gnashing sounds. Heart pounding, she reached for the latch. Would this open the portal to her own hidden pain? Or would it unleash a darkness meant to consume them both? In one swift motion, she threw the chest open. A cold wave of air rushed forth, mingled with an otherworldly whisper that beckoned her. What would emerge from the depths? The answer dangled tantalizingly close, leaving only questions and the unquenchable thirst for truth as the shadows roared louder behind her. Time was almost up. What would she uncover in the light of this haunting revelation? The chest creaked open, releasing a gust of ice-cold air that wrapped around her like a shroud. Shadows seemed to writhe and stretch, eager to escape the confines of the door as if sensing their opportunity. In that moment, time slowed. Her heart raced, the echo of its beat filling her ears, drowning out the chaos behind her. Inside the chest, glimmers of sparkles danced in the dim light. It felt almost alive. "What are you doing?" he shouted, panic threading through his voice. Ignoring him, she leaned closer. Nestled among scraps of yellowed paper and tangled fabrics was something glinting, a mirror. But it was no ordinary one. Intricate carvings lined its edges, and as she reached for it, a sigh lingered in the air, soft and haunting. Her fingertips brushed the surface, and an image began to surface, a woman, familiar yet unrecognizable, standing in the same house. She felt breathless as she stared into her own reflection, distorted by the fear laced within these shadows. The woman's eyes mirrored her own, but within them lay depths of sorrow and secrets, a universe of untold pain. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice slipping into a near desperation. "You mustn't let it in." But it was too late. The whispering voices swirled around her, tempting her forward with promises of understanding, of closure. A flood of memories cascaded into her mind, lost loves, broken dreams, fears shrouded in darkness. These shadows were her shadows, and she gasped as the realization gripped her. The house was not just a trap, it was an unforgiving mirror of her life. "Don't look. It won't set you free." His words barely registered above the cacophony echoing in her head. As the reflections danced, she caught a glimpse of an old photograph tucked behind the mirror, her parents, smiling, yet the joy in their faces felt like a ghost, haunting her. She focused harder, pulling on the thread of pain that connected them all, tugging desperately for answers. It twisted and turned, pulling her deeper into the abyss. "No!" she shouted, "I need to know." Each confession of her heart pulled her further, entranced by the shadows, feeding off her fears like parasites. Suddenly, the door bucked and splintered with a crack that echoed through the room. He flew to her side, hysteria written across his face. "We can't stay. It's coming." But she felt a force drawing her nearer. Memory upon memory wound around her heart, forcing her to confront not only the woman in the locket but all the grief she had buried. Fractured moments bled together, the heartbreak over losing her childhood, the silent screams of abandonment. If she did not confront it, it would consume them both. She dared to ask, who was she? What did she lose? "No!" he screamed, coming to grip her shoulders, shaking her. "You don't understand. If you see her truth, you won't be the same." His warning sent a thrill of fear through her, but the truth was a heady whine. The shadows howled with hunger, and she didn't know how much longer they could hold. Then, she felt it, the presence coiling behind her, creeping ever closer, suffocating her thoughts like hands around her throat. Time was slipping. She gripped the mirror tighter, and a vision pierced through, a legacy interwoven with sorrow, a secret buried deep in her own past. The woman's eyes no longer mirrored her own, they became eyes of a stranger, searching for liberation. A scream rang out, echoing within her. "Let me in!" The voice cried, a jumbled mass of emotions wrestling within. Please. The walls shivered, and the shadows clawed at her mind, amplifying the dread of all she had hidden away. Suddenly, her vision blurred, and she felt the chill of the locket heating against her hip. Could it contain the answers to all she sought? As she stood at the precipice of truth, the shadows burst through the door, dark and lethal, just as she realized something deep inside was awakening. What would she unleash? Would understanding be her salvation or her doom? The whispers grew louder, the shadows surged closer, and she stood frozen, daring to take the next step into the abyss. Would she find herself within it, or would she be lost forever? The air thickened with tension as the door shuddered violently against the frames, the ancient wood groaning under the weight of the shadows, eager to spill into the room. She could feel the chill seep deeper into her bones, coiling tighter as if the ghosts of the past were wrapping around her in a desperate embrace. Adrenaline pulsed in her veins, heightening every sense. The whispers in her head surged, lulling her further towards the mirror. "Get away from it!" he yelled, his grip tightening on her shoulders. She could see the fear carved into his features, an echo of her own dread, and it only fueled her resolve. "I have to know." She tore her gaze from him, fixated on that reflection. The woman was beckoning like a siren. What answers would the shards of glass yield? In that heartbeat, the world shifted. The moment the mirror swallowed her gaze, colors blurred and spun around her. Night darkened and light flashed. She was in a tunnel of memories, swirling like a tempest. Images cut through her mind, brief and fragmented, laughter echoing in sunlit rooms, hands clapped together in celebration, then quickly morphing into a suffocating silence. Each flicker of memory wrenched her heart more tightly, urging her to push forward. "Stop!" he shouted again, more desperately this time. "You don't know what you're doing." But his words were nothing but a foggy echo, drowned by the cries of the past. She witnessed a glimpse of herself, an unrecognizable figure, eyes hollow, lips stained with unvoiced grief. "What happened?" she murmured, tears blurring her vision. She needed to understand, to make sense of this chaos. She reached deeper, the locket now a hot pulse against her skin, urging her on like an old friend. Could it truly connect her to those long-lost pieces? The moment she thought of it, the mirror shimmered violently, the visage of the woman solidified, revealing not just sorrow, but rage and regret. "Release me!" The voice scraped against her raw heart. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere, a spectre entwining with her own spirit. Her breath hitched as the shadows coiled tighter around them both, inching closer, more aggressive. With trembling hands, she grasped the locket, feeling its warmth radiating against the encroaching cold. The energy coursing from it felt like a lifeline. But was she ready to capture her past, knowing it could unleash more than she bargained for? Suddenly, memories didn't just flood her mind, they surged into her heart, igniting a maelstrom of emotion. She gasped as each moment unfolded, a childhood memory of her mother dancing in the living room, darkened by an ominous silhouette standing by the window. "Who are you?" she cried out, the shadows inching forward as if they could sense her wavering strength. "What did you take from me? What I am is what you fear most." The woman screamed, her voice slicing through the tempest. "You must choose the truth or the chains that bind you." In that moment, she realized this mirror was a bridge, a gateway. All shadows were reflections of her own fears, each spoke of the pain she had left buried, the family secrets etched deep into her memory. With a brave heart, she leaned closer to the mirror, the locket warm against her palm. "I want to be free." The reflection twisted and warped, shadows clawing desperately at her consciousness, thrumming with anger. Time slipped again, moments merging into one consuming entity. The walls quivered as the shadow surged, blurring the line between her desire for truth and the fear of what it would reveal. As a sudden crash echoed, the house seemed to scream, vibrating furiously, eager to push her back. "Don't look away!" he shouted in desperation, but the darkness loomed heavier now, swallowing hope, consuming certainty. Her vision blurred, the weight of hidden answers pressing down on her. She had to decide. Would she step forward and shatter the glass that separated her from herself, or would she remain shackled to a past she could no longer let control her? The mirror pulsed, shadows twisting like serpents, and she felt herself being pulled. It was now or never. The battle raged within her, the desire to embrace her past or the instinct to turn and flee, and then, everything went dark. What lay behind that veil of darkness? Would her true self emerge, or would she be consumed by all that had haunted her? Her heart raced in the void, the silence pressing against her like 1,000 blankets. It was suffocating, heavier than anything she had ever lifted or pushed against. However, she could hear something, a heartbeat. Was it her own, or the echo of the woman in the mirror? Suddenly, a flash of light broke through the darkness. Blinding and sharp, it sliced through her thoughts, illuminating fragments of memories like flashes of a storm. Before she could even catch a breath, she felt an intense grip pull her from the abyss. All at once, she was yanked back, thrown into the room once again. Gasping, she collapsed against the cold floorboards. The mirror loomed ominously before her, its surface rippling as though alive, a mocking reminder of the battle she had nearly lost. The shadows tugged at her, swirling like smoke, whispering frantic words of the chaos she had just endured. "Did you see?" he asked, his voice trembling as he knelt beside her. His eyes roamed nervously, as if searching for signs of danger. "What did you find?" "Loss, pain," she stammered, wrestling the memory back into submission. But there was more, something dark. "I felt something calling me." "The curse," he breathed, his face pale. He took a step back, as if the air had shifted to poison. "You shouldn't have looked. You could have opened something worse." "What do you mean?" she demanded, her voice a mere whisper, the weight of his words dropping like lead into her stomach. "What worse could there be?" The mirror trembled again, a grotesque distortion mimicking their fears. She felt a pull, a visceral connection that bound them to its reflective surface. The surface shimmered, showing not just their faces but shadows of figures watching them from the depths, watching, waiting. "Legends speak of a guardian," he started, a shaky breath escaping him. "A spirit trapped within. If you see the past, you risk awakening it. We're not alone, not anymore." Chills prickled her skin. "What does it want?" "I don't know," he stuttered. "But it thrives on unresolved grief." His voice dropped to a horrified hush. "It can take you. Replace you." The realization hit her like an icy wave. All the moments she had forgotten, the pain buried deep within, were now catalysts for something far more sinister. The prospect of facing her past felt like a paper-thin veil between life and something worse. "Then we have to leave," she said, rising to her feet, trying to steady herself. But her resolve faltered, as her hand instinctively traced the locket still warm against her chest, a tether to her memories. She was standing on the precipice of something survival depended on. But the chaos had stirred again. The mirror began to vibrate violently, energy swirling wildly. Captured in its depths, she could see flashes of her life, rapid fire. Friends, lovers, strangers, all fading, replaced by writhing shadows. They screamed at her to look away, yet they also beckoned with the curiosity she couldn't shake. "Don't! It's not a part of you anymore," he shouted, reaching for her, but she was too far gone, the connection too potent to resist. "Let go of the past. We can build a new future," he urged, desperation cracking his voice wide open. "Can we?" She felt her voice tremble as the specter of her former self reached through the glass, pale fingers stretched toward her, eyes hollow and pleading. Before she could answer, the room erupted into chaos. The shadows surged and twisted, consuming everything in their path, and the mirror cracked with a deafening roar, a jagged line splitting the surface. "Run!" he screamed, but her feet were anchored to the floor, paralyzed by fear and fascination. What was destined to shatter was now pulling her deeper into the void, the last remnants of light flickering out as the darkness loomed closer, hungry and relentless. With a final surge, a shadow lunged forward, ready to consume her whole. But as the darkness closed in, a whisper echoed in her mind, "Tell me your truth and I will set you free." Outside the storm raged on, but would she be free, or trapped forever in this eternal battle of the past? The question hung in the air like a gunshot. What would she decide, and who or what might emerge on the other side? The shattered mirror loomed like a portal to another world, its fragments glimmering ominously in the dim light. She felt chains of trepidation wrap around her heart as the abyss reached out, whispering promises of revelation and sure despair. "Don't! Please!" he screamed, his voice cracking with panic. He lunged forward, trying to grasp her arm, but she recoiled, the coldness of the floor matching the chill in her veins. "Get away from me!" The words burst from her lips, fierceness all but drowned in the tide of uncertainty. She didn't understand, but she felt the pull, the urgency of that haunting whisper. "Tell me your truth," it beckoned like a siren, tempting her with the dangerous thrill of discovery. "Look at me," he implored, desperation etched into his every feature. "You can't let it take you. You're more than your past." But part of her already knew that wasn't true. The shadows dancing behind him reflected every wound she had ever suffered, a gallery of regrets and sorrows that had sculpted her. In that fractured surface, she saw her past faces, once lost to her, reaching out, yearning, demanding to be acknowledged. "Stop! You don't understand!" she shouted. The crack in the mirror widened, chaos spilling forth like dark ink bleeding into water. She struggled against the fear clenching her throat, but yet the whispers urged her to lean in closer. Then, a piercing scream shattered the tension, echoing inside the confines of her mind. It was hers, reverberating with pain, filled with memories of loss that clawed at her insides. She blinked, tears pooling in her eyes, blurring the line between reality and remembrance. "Help me! I can't," the plea slipped between her lips, frayed with despair. As she gazed into the void, shadows began to emerge, lazy and creeping, thickening the air. Each one took on the form of her past, her mother's disappointed eyes, her father's absence, and a lover's betrayal. "Stay with me. Fight it!" He reached out, but the shadows hissed like a sudden gust of wind, threatening to snatch him too. "Fight what?" she rasped. This is me. After everything, this is all I have left." The temperature dropped. A bone-chilling draft blew through the room, surrounding her with bitter whispers of lost chances and haunting ghosts that crawled from the corners of her mind. They clawed at her, tugging at the edges of her sanity. The shadows coalesced, forming a figure that radiated an uncanny familiarity, a reflection of herself entwined with the spectral remnants, a version of her that existed just beyond her reach. "Come," it cried out, a voice both tender and terrifying. "Embrace your pain and be set free." Compelled, she stepped closer, hands trembling. The figure crossed its arms over its chest, a smirk dancing at the edges of its mouth. "You want to understand?" it taunted. "Let it in. Face your truth. I'll show you." "Don't!" he shouted, panic twisting his face. "You don't know what you're unleashing." But the shadowy self reached forth, drawing her into a dance of eternal sorrow and long-buried truths. The warmth of the locket against her heart burned hot, an anchor to her past even as the past sought to swallow her whole. "Let me go!" she cried, yet the weight of the truth pressed down on her. The shadows pulled tighter, binding her will and warping her desire, brushing against desires that took root in the darkest parts of her heart. The crack in the mirror widened, a boundary between two worlds teetering on the brink of collapse. She could choose to fight, to flee, or to surrender to the shadows. The room trembled, crackling with anxiety, 1,000 shadows ready to weave into her being. "Tell me your truth." The whispers crescendoed into a feverish howl, demanding the revelation that would decide her fate. Just then, a deafening thud shook the floor, a disruption that sent the shadows howling back. "What was that?" he shouted, eyes wide with terror, the air thickened with tension. Something had shifted, loomed over them, a presence hungry for secrets. As the lights flickered above, a deeper echo sounded in the darkness. "I am coming for you." It was a voice unlike any other, a growl that sent chills skimming down her spine, filling the room with dread. "Run!" he cried as the shadows licked at their heels, transforming into something more sinister. What awaited them, and could they still escape before whatever was hunting them struck? The question hung in the air, heavy as a storm cloud. No answer yet, just the foreboding realization that their greatest fears were beginning to take shape. A deafening silence enveloped them, thick and oppressive. The growl echoed again, reverberating through the room like a death knell. She turned to him, her eyes wild with fear. "What is that?" "Don't look!" he shouted, his voice strained. "We need to get out." But the door was gone, swallowed by the shifting shadows. The only escape lay in the now gaping crack of the mirror. She hesitated, the shadows closing in, curling around her ankles like tendrils of smoke. They seemed alive, pulsing with a malevolent energy, demanding her attention. "Please, we have to think." She pressed, her breath hitching. But all thoughts dissolved into panic as the figure emerged fully, stepping from the depths of the mirror. It was her reflection, yet distorted. Its face was a mask of sorrow, twisted with dark secrets. He stumbled back, eyes wide. "That is you? But how?" "I don't know," she cried, hands wringing together, the locket pounding against her chest like a heartbeat of its own. "It wants something from me. It knows. Stay close to me." His voice was a tether, pulling her from the abyss. But even as he spoke, the shadows surged forward, thriving on her fear. They erupted in a chaotic swirl, revealing remnants of her past, figures she never wanted to confront. They emerged one by one. Her mother, with the weight of disappointment in her eyes, stepped forward, chestnut hair billowing like a dark cloud. "You'll never escape your guilt," she said, the voice droning like a nightmarish echo. Her father followed, spectral and hollow. "You can't outrun me, leave me alone," she screamed. Tears streamed down her face, each droplet a testament to years of unresolved pain. The room trembled, racked with their accusations. The shadows grew more ferocious, drawing nearer, hungry for her weakness. He surged forward again. "Breathe. Hold on to something real." His voice cut through the din, grounding her, yet the phantoms continued to swirl. "What do I do?" she gasped, heart racing. "What do they want?" "The truth," he yelled, firm and unwavering. "You need to face it. Whatever you've been avoiding." As the shadows coalesced, the pressure built in her chest. She felt the warmth of the locket shine through, but it battled against the seeping cold of denial. Could facing the truth really set her free? The figures advanced, their whispers wrapping around her like a net. "It's your fault you let us go," they hissed in unison. The air crackled with sorrow so thick it threatened to suffocate her. "No," she shouted. "You're not real. You don't control me." But as soon as the words escaped her lips, the shadows encircled her, their grip tightening like a noose. The growl echoed again, more intense, resonating with a hunger that knotted her stomach. "Get out of here," he shouted, pulling her back, but his grasp felt weak, slipping through her fingers like sand. "Help!" she begged, but there was no one to hear. The room was a nightmare come to life, the specters of her past ripping at her soul, dragging her toward the void. Then, a blinding light erupted from the mirror, tearing through the darkness. The shadows coiled back, shrieking as the figure of her twisted self dissipated amid the brilliance. It was a portal, her only chance at escape. "Go!" he yelled, his eyes fierce but desperation flickering within them. "I want to leave you. I want to leave you," she echoed, panic lurching in her heart. But she knew she had to decide quickly. A choice stood before her: surrender to the shadows or leap into the unknown. Would facing her truth offer freedom, or only lead her deeper into the chaos? The light pulsed, demanding her attention, promising clarity. But what lay on the other side? Could she truly confront her past, or would it consume her entirely? As she hesitated, she felt the shadows pushing her closer to the edge of the crack, her destiny dangling in the balance. What happened next would seal her fate. Would she leap into the light, or would she let the darkness prevail? The answer lurked just out of reach, waiting to be unveiled. The shadows howled around her, desperate to pull her back into their suffocating embrace. The light pulsed brighter, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness choking her thoughts. Every heartbeat thudded louder, echoing an ancient rhythm of survival, and she stood at the edge of a precipice, teetering between two worlds. "Go!" he screamed, his voice raw with urgency. "You have to make a choice." His face twisted with determination, urging her to leap into the searing light that seemed to pulse like a living entity. She could see the shadows recoiling, as if the light disarmed them. Would this be her salvation, or would the shadows pull her back, consuming her whole? The figures tormented her, clawing at her memory. The weight of their accusations wove through her mind like a noose, tightening relentlessly. Each accusation struck anew: her mother's disappointment, her father's absence, the friends lost to time. "You let them go!" they charged, voices blending into a cacophony of grief. "Stop!" she cried, angry and sorrowful. "You don't control me anymore." But even as she spoke those words, she felt the tension coil within her, the fear battling against her resolve. Would stepping into that glowing promise of truth finally sever the bonds of regret? Sensing the growing urgency, he pulled at her, grounding her in this moment, tethering her to hope. "Remember, the truth may hurt, but it will set you free. You don't have to bear it alone." The shadows tugged at her like a riptide, but his fierce grip painted a glimmer of warmth. He wasn't just a shadow in her dark world, he was a balm against her fears. Could they fight together? Then it hit her as if a revelation sparked to life beneath the chaos. The shadows reflected her own pain, woven intricately with the sorrows she had buried deep. Yet, lurking beneath that pain was a strength she hadn't known existed. Taking a deep breath, she gazed into the light, eyes narrowing against its brilliance. It whispered promises of understanding that would illuminate the darkest corners of her life. Heart racing, hand gripping the locket, she stepped forward. "Let go of the past," she bellowed, adrenaline thrumming in her veins. The shadows recoiled slightly, urging her to hesitate, but determination burned undeterred. "I will face you. I will confront every regret, every sorrow." With that resolve ringing in her heart, she lunged into the light. Instantly, the air crackled and charged, the shadows roared in fury, trying to pull her back, but the light enveloped her, warmth flooding through her. Memories rushed at her like waves: the laughter of friends, the love of family. But the anger, grief, and regret twisted alongside them, wrapping tightly. Yet, all of it turned into a palette of her life's tapestry, threads of connections finally coming together. She felt herself expanding like the waves of a warm ocean, the burden of her past still there, but finally, mixing into the light, transforming into something beautiful. As the shadows clawed and screamed, she remained unmoved, refusing to let their wild voices drown her newfound strength. "You will not define me anymore," she vowed, speaking into the light. It ignited deeper in response, bursting with energy, swirling into a cyclone of brilliance. The room shifted around her, shadows recoiling into nothingness. Her heart recognized the liberation she had sought for so long. This could be her freedom, her release. And with the final sense of surrender, the shadows vanished. No longer could they hold sway over her. The mirror shattered completely, light streaming triumphantly through remnants of darkness. In the aftermath, everything felt calmer, the world serene. The oppressive weight lifted, she turned around, and there he stood, eyes wide with disbelief, the fear still lingering but now mixed with something brighter: hope. "Are you okay?" he asked, stepping toward her cautiously. "I think I'm finally free," she breathed, tears streaming evenly as relief engulfed her. With every ounce of despair lifting, a warm glow settled within her chest. The mansion felt different now. No longer a tomb for secrets, it had become a monument to her journey, a heavy past now paved into a path forward. As dawn broke through shattered windows, the light flooded in, illuminating cracks of darkness. She turned back to him, a smile blooming, a sense of unity forming. "Let's leave this place together." He held her gaze, fierce and unyielding. Together. And together they walked toward the newly illuminated doorway, the shadows left behind in a brawl of silence. The mansion whispered no more, its secrets unveiled, allowing the truth to breathe. Once confined, now they soared, ready to paint vibrant strokes on a clean canvas. Outside, the world awaited, bright and full of possibilities. "Let us go," she said, moving step by step into the light. They were free to embrace their lives in all its chaotic beauty. As they stepped into a new morning, the dawn of life brushed against their skin, a story freshly written, where shadows no longer loomed ominously overhead but dissipated into the past forever. Now, about this amazing journey you just read. Don't forget, right this moment is the time to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that are just around the corner. And let us light up the like, smash that button now to keep the joy flowing. Don't hold back. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters, and I need to hear from you. This is the moment. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who could use a little inspiration. Don't wait even one more second. It's up to you to keep this momentum moving. Let us remember, only true fans understand the power of lifting each other up. Thank you for being here.